Welcome. My name is Brent Ehrlich. I'm the Products and Materials Specialist here at Building Green. Today I'm going to be presenting our top 10 green building products. For those of you who are at Green Build in LA, I presented this out on the expo floor, but for those of you who missed it or just want to recap, we're going to give you another overview. So let's jump right in. So the format for this, what we do is we typically give you what is the business as usual in the industry for whatever particular sector and why the top 10 product is needed. And then we'll go over what this smarter solution is. We have been vetting green building products here for more than 20 years now. Some of you may have known our product database formerly as GreenSpec. And now our database is housed and accessed through on the Designer Pages website. But we're still screening the products in the same way based on criteria we've developed over all these years. We rely on third-party certification, other life cycle assessment information, but we also cover new and interesting products that may redefine categories. And in those cases, we take some risks and we do our research, and you get to see some new and really innovative products. And we actually have a couple of those today. On Designer Pages, this is an easy to find format. You can actually, if anybody's been on there and played with it, you can create your own collections that are specific to your end use in your project. So again, this is all comes from Building Green still. We are an independent company. We do not take advertising or any marketing. We have no connection with manufacturers in that regard. So we're known as an unbiased news and information source. So with that said, let's just jump right into these products. Now, PV is growing in popularity and for good reason, but it still has limitations. Namely, you can't store that power, and that limits its use as far as resilience. We're still vulnerable to power outages. But if you are going to use battery backup systems, the ones available today are typically quite toxic. You have the lead acid is the most popular, and while it's recyclable, the materials again are quite hazardous. Lithium ion batteries are expensive. We're still excited about the technology though. As a matter of fact, last year we gave Tesla's Powerwall a top 10. But it's a complicated system, and it's still relatively pricey. And the lithium salts are not exactly benign. So our top 10 product this year comes from Aquion, and it's their, quote, saltwater battery. They call it the Aqueous Hybrid Ion Battery, and it uses a sodium sulfate electrolyte, and this is in place of lithium salts that you see in like something like the Powerwall, or sulfuric acid, which is typical in the lead acid batteries. Of course, both of those again are quite toxic, and Aquion is a fairly safe battery. You could tip this over, and the electrolytes are fairly benign. You can mop this up and it's not going to be a problem. They're very simple systems. And one of the real advantages of that safety aspect, if you are in a commercial building, it's something you don't have to worry about. And that's a real plus. Plus, it has some interesting performance capabilities. It can operate at a pretty wide temperature range. This is something that both lead acid and lithium ion batteries can be challenged by. And it's a deep cycle battery, so it has some good storage capabilities. Currently, it's available in two models, the Aspen S line. As you can see here, they're smaller. It's the 2.2 kilowatt per hour stack. But you can get it in larger bundles of pallets of these, as you can see below. They're available to meet large-scale storage needs. But again, one of our keys to this is we're excited about the fact that they've really tried to hone in on the safety of batteries and to make this batteries less toxic than the ones in the past. This has achieved C2C bronze and silver for material reutilization and water stewardship. And they have eliminated PVC from their entire system. Again, the materials are abundant, quite common, and they're fairly safe. And they're durable batteries. These will last a long time. And again, they're a very low-tech system. So it's an interesting combination of having something that ties into a high technology system, but the basic raw system itself is fairly low tech. The downsides of this battery are they are bulky and expensive right now, though it is easy to manufacture this battery. So we expect that the price of this is going to come down, and the performance and size are probably going to improve. So we're excited about the Aquion saltwater battery. Business as usual in the industry, installing weather barriers on site is a real challenge. These weather barriers are one of the most important parts of the building envelope. They protect the building from air moisture penetration. If that gets through, it can cause all sorts of problems in terms of durability, mold, rot, as you can see here, possibly insects and indoor air quality problems. Weather-resistant barriers themselves can be tricky to install. The typical, as you can see here, the house wrap that's on can be a challenge, of course, and performance is somewhat inconsistent. And when you talk about fluid-applied products, then you have to have really knowledgeable people who are installing. Then those systems have to be tested. They can be great systems, but the building has to be clean and dry for them to be applied. So weather can really impact the schedule, and of course if the installer doesn't get it right, then that's going to be behind the cladding, and people aren't going to notice it potentially until it's too late. So our top 10 product this year is the Secure-Rock EXO-Air 430. This is a combination of USG's Secure-Rock fiberglass face sheathing and the factory-applied Tremco weather barrier. Now, the fact that they've gone ahead and applied the fluid applied product at the factory is really a nice step for the industry. They get consistent application on the product across it, consistent performance. So when it comes from the factory, your weather barrier is already installed. It passes all the tests, of course. And the Tremco sealants are compatible. So it's a whole system. So you have the fluid applied barrier that's put on at the factory, and then you have the whole system of Tremco sealants that are color coded. So when you install them, you know that they are going to function together for a long, durable system. Again, the benefits of this, you get much faster installation with fewer delays, and that really is the key to the system. But for us, it's about durability and performance. You are going to be protecting the building for a long time, getting a lot of that installer error out of the system. And the weather isn't going to impact the product during installation as well. So again, less installer error. And then there's going to be less waste, not only the job site waste, but material waste from overspray, and the installers aren't going to be exposed to the fluid applied, say, products as well. But in this case, the Tremco sealants are GreenGuard Gold certified. They've gone through the testing and actually meet that. And it's an indoor air quality standard, but I think Tremco's done a nice job to go ahead and get that certified for IAQ, even though it's an exterior product. So we're excited about the EXO-Air 430 product as well. The textile industry is one of the dirtiest industries in the world. And it really flies in the face of what we see textiles in our buildings, because there's some of the most beautiful products out there, and yet producing them can not only waste a lot of water, especially water, but energy. But the dyeing and finishing is a significant problem in the industry. They say that you can tell what colors are popular in the West by the colors of some of the rivers in developing countries. There are few environmental or labor laws in those countries, and so when you are purchasing a textile, you can actually be contributing to some of the worst pollution. These beautiful products are have some of the worst environmental performance of any building product that we have, though they get very little attention. There are a lot of good quality, environmentally sustainable textiles out there, but finding them and separating those from the others is really a challenge. There's a very complex textile supply chain, and it's tough for designers to find them. So our top 10 product is actually not a product. It comes from Designtex Textiles, and we're giving them a top 10 this year for their website filters. May sound a little odd, but they've got a catalog of over 8,000 materials, and they've created a website filter that you can filter for materials, you can filter for standards, you can filter for certifications. So if you're looking for something specific, say I have to have C2C Gold on this project, and we want to make sure that it's done with carbon neutral shipping. You can actually select and check off those boxes and find the products on their website that meet that. And in some cases, you could go for, if you're looking for a fax, and your client only wants fax silver, but you don't want to put any perfluorinated or fluorinated compounds on there to resist staining. And PFCs are persistent in the environment, and they're being phased out of use by a lot of companies. If you want to avoid those, you can actually click off a box on there and find the ones that meet your fax certification and don't have any PFCs. It's really a great thing for designers to simplify the selection of sustainable materials. And some of the benefits there, the company is actually tracking all of this textile information to try to keep improving it, and they can provide customized data. And they can actually tweak because of the way they've set up their database, they can tweak the filters as the industry and clients' needs evolve. But one of the really interesting keys of this is the company, if you are selecting this for an end use and you have sustainability in mind, when those products pop up that are Fax Gold or whatever, they are tailored for your end use. So if you select something, you're looking on there for upholstery and you're going to be using it for seating, and you don't want any PFCs on there, the products that are going to come up, you're not going to get a wall covering pop-up. You're not going to get anything that's going to waste your time. You're going to get something that's specific to that end use and actually warranted for that end use. So kudos to Designtex. I think a worthy recipient of a top 10 this year. And here is a view of that. I know it's complicated, but this just gives you an overview of all the possible filters that you could look for in your, down to the country of origin. You could get your certificates and standards, codes for flammability, and you can get abrasion. Again, just a great overview of all of the possibilities, from performance and typical things that you look for a textile, all the way to all of your environmental credentials. Our next business as usual, we convert alternating current to direct current whenever we operate many of our new devices in our buildings, whether that be our laptops, our cell phones, our LED lighting, many of our motors. These are all DC powered. But every time you take that DC and you're looking at one of the bricks here, it has to convert it to DC, and there's conversion losses in that. And not only that, but every time you have one of these bricks, or especially when you look at LED lighting, each one has a driver, for instance, and all of the materials that go into each and every driver throughout a building. It's a lot of waste and a lot of conversion losses. And actually, that's one of the items that typically fails first. So you end up replacing a lot of materials unnecessarily. But converting a DC system can be, converting to a DC system can be complicated business. So we have given a top 10 this year to Nextex Power Hub Driver. This is an all-in-one AC to DC power supply. This converts AC as it comes into the building, as you see here, to 380 volt DC. This is the new standard in the industry. And one of the interesting things about this system is you can take renewables and run them into the system as well. So you have AC coming in from the wall, but you can bring DC in from your PV panel or potentially from a battery or other renewable sources. and then if you're running your LED, say, off of them, it'll optimize the whatever system that you want to be using. So if you're getting a lot of PV that day, it will take the power from there. But if the sun is fading, it will draw it from the AC. Now, if you look at the image here, you can see those 16 outputs there. You get 100 watts per channel, so it's a 1600 watt total per box coming out of here. And each one of these channels is a 24 volt current. That's a low voltage current, so that's something that you could go up and grab that wire and it's not going to hurt you. It's not your typical wiring. This system, it's a smart system. It can connect up wired or wireless to pretty much all the communication protocols. It can hook up with your building systems. One of the reason that we are really excited about this product is because if you use this for LED lighting, this can be used to dim the lighting. And that's something that's usually handled by the drivers, dimming systems. But again, those are the systems that typically fail first. So in an LED, those drivers also can be the things that contribute to flicker, to poor color quality, and poor performance over the LED lights. This eliminates the driver entirely. And why that is cool, say you have 30 lights running off of this, and that's 30 drivers that you are replacing through the use of this, and that's 30 LEDs that are going to be performing better than they were across the board, potentially expanding their lifespan as well, because of course the driver's not going to fail, but it's also just a cleaner power coming to those units. And by replacing those drivers, you could potentially save enough money to pay for the unit itself. Now, some of the benefits of using DC, it can be used for other things besides LED lighting, better power quality, and of course it contributes to resilience when the batteries are added to the system. You get a better reliability and fewer electronics like the driver to fail. And the controls can all be run through the Power Hub. So you can set this up, and this can be your one controller for that entire system. So you don't have to have it. It's much less complicated on that end. And it also provides a future connectivity. If you're going to do the Internet of Things, this is the kind of unit that can handle that. Of course, again, we have the safety element from the 24 volt power. And along with that safety, it means it's easier to replace equipment. If you want to reorganize your office or redo your lighting, it's a plug-and-play system, so just about anybody could do it. You don't even need an electrician. So this is the Nextech Power Hub driver. Now, our water piping today is almost all copper, CPVC, or PEX. And they're all viable systems. They've been around for a while. They're proven, but they all come with environmental life cycle trade-offs. Of course, copper we know is expensive and has some pitting issues and vulnerable to theft. But it's been around a while. Of course, we all know copper. CPVC, also proven product. Many have issues with PVC's life cycle profile. And PEX, which is now very common in residential use, of course, is not recyclable. This is a cross-linked product. That's what the X stands for. So once that polyethylene is cross-linked, it can't be undone. So it is the PEX is not a recyclable product, and it often needs to be flushed to get rid of some unpleasant taste in the water left over from that cross-linking process. So our top 10 product this year is the HyperPure water piping. Now, HyperPure is basically looks just like PEX. It's a flexible, potable, what they call a bimodal polyethylene. And this is a drop-in replacement for PEX. It's been in Europe for a while, as you can see here. So it has a proven track record. But unlike PEX, it is recyclable. And there's no chemical taste in the water because it doesn't use the cross-linking process. The benefits, it uses the same fittings as PEX, and so anybody used to using PEX won't even know the difference really necessarily. But There's a potential in the future to be able to thermally fuse this product. Anybody familiar with polypropylene pipe knows that if you fuse, those plastic bits together, it it becomes as strong as the pipe itself. And in some cases, if you use a connector, it becomes stronger than the pipe. Um, there's a potential that someday Hyperpure could do the same thing. But right now, uh, the PEX fittings are the most viable choice, and there's probably going to be a little less thermal fusing of this than there is with polypropylene just because of the size of the pipe. But it is a possibility in the future for certain end uses. Stormwater management. Stormwater management is such an important environmental concern. Water that runs off of streets, off of sidewalks, it collects toxins from roads, out of the air, and that washes into our rivers and waterways. It can be a significant problem there, and if you just flush it down the drain, it also doesn't replenish the aquifers. So in order to do on-site stormwater management systems, those can be really expensive. If you're using something permeable like a paver, that has its own challenges as far as installation and exterior design. So this year's product is the D-Rain Joint Rainwater Filter Drain from Biomicrobics. Now, the reason we really like this is it's one of those simple ideas it just seems like a real no-brainer. It looks just like a standard expansion joint that you'd find in concrete slabs. So if you have an impermeable surface, say, as long as you prepared the subsurface, you can use typical sidewalk, use this in place of the expansion joint. Water that runs down then goes into that expansion joint and then can be filtered down through the subsurface drainage material. And it can handle a pretty good flow rate up to 5 gallons per minute. Typical, I think they are stating, is 2 gallons per minute. But you could potentially put 2 or 3 of these together if you wanted to increase that. But it's a cost-effective system. You can replace the filters that are in between the crack there. There's 2 different materials. One is aluminum and one is a polypropylene composite material, and that material is stackable. It's a 4-inch, but you can stack it up to 8 inches high for heavy traffic use. And here's a side view of that product. You can see the filter here on the left and the drainage here on the right that goes down through. So that's the D-Rain. And our next business as usual is wood treated with toxic metals and biocides. This has been the standard in the industry for a while, and though the industry has cleaned up its act, it no longer uses chromium or arsenic. But the contemporary ones typically contain copper and biocides. As we talked about earlier, copper still does have a heavy environmental footprint, and it is an aquatic toxin. And the proprietary biocides, well, they can also leach into the environment. Some materials that are used, like plastic alternatives, don't typically look that great. And they don't have them for all end uses. Those are typically decking products. So our top 10 this year is Akoya's acetylated wood. Now Akoya's been around for a while. This is an FSC product. It's made out of radiated pine, and it's immersed in basically what is a super strong vinegar under heat and pressure. And what that does is it changes the cell structure of the wood and makes it extremely resistant to water. Insects and fungi don't like it, and because it doesn't absorb water, it doesn't swell or shrink like most other woods. It's extremely dimensionally stable, which is really cool. But that's not why we gave it to them this year. We've been following Akoya for many years, and they are now ICC approved for ground contact application. And that was why we were excited that Akoya has gone to this and taken this step to do so. In Europe, Akoya has been used to line canals, and they're using Akoya wood in places you'd never expect wood to hold up, and it's being used more and more in bridges and other construction, and they are making structural products out of this now. But again, the reason that we, on top of the the code approval, one of the reasons we really like Akoya is they've also gone to the trouble. They have EPDs, of course, and that FSC certification that we mentioned, but they've gone to the trouble to get cradle-to-cradle gold certification. That's a very high bar especially for a treated wood. And they actually have a platinum material health certificate, and that's kind of unheard of. And so it has the performance and environmental pedigree in order to certainly be worthy of a top 10. It's not all perfect though. The issue with Akoya is it has a large shipping footprint, which results in a high first cost. The wood itself comes from New Zealand, and it is shipped to Europe for processing. Now we are hoping that the company can bring this technology to the U.S. They are building market share currently in Europe, and the company's excited about where they're going, and we're hoping that this will make it to the U.S. in the next few years. Our next business as usual is water consumption from conventional toilets. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Toilets have become more and more efficient over the years, and California standards are now the low 1.28 gallons per flush. And we've been touting the benefits of, say, Niagara, which we gave a top 10 to a couple of years ago, because it's 0.9 gallons per flush, and a couple other companies now are making 1 gallon per flush toilets. So why tout water consumption in toilets? Haven't we got that problem solved? Well, not really. There's a lot of infrastructure, a lot more to waste than just waste. While you have the infrastructure to move that waste, then it goes downstream where it's typically mixed in with or can be mixed in with stormwater. That has to be treated, that has laden with chemicals, and then it has to be treated further with chemicals, and then shipped out to landfills. It's not the ideal. All that waste, when you have a potentially usable fertilizer that could be dealt with on site. So our top 10 this year goes to Phoenix Composting Toilet. You know what you might be thinking? Is this just stuff that you see out in wilderness facilities and campsites or our off-grid homes? But no, they've actually been incorporated into many commercial buildings now. They're quite sophisticated systems, actually. They have a biochamber that uses a small amount of wood. The air circulation in there drives the composting process. You have to mix it once, but it keeps this natural waste nutrient cycle local, and it gets rid of all of that, the water from all of that flushing year round, all the infrastructure to manage it, and in some cases replacing a septic system can also get rid of any concerns with local groundwater contamination. Phoenix offers a couple of products, a dry one, which is basically almost a one-to-one toilet to composting unit situation, but they now have their Neptune Foam Flush, which is the commercial one that can hook multiple toilets up and drive them down into the composting chamber. Now the toilets that they use for these actually look quite a bit like a typical toilet, so many people won't even know. And for those who are a little uneasy about the whole composting and isn't that going to smell and everything else, well, the way these work, they have a 4-watt fan that creates negative pressure, and that airflow that goes through there helps drive the aerobic operation of the thing itself. But it also pulls, when you're using the toilet, actually pulls some negative pressure out of there. So none of the odor, none of that would ever get up through into the building. In fact, many people say that they actually smell better than a typical toilet. The ones that you see here are used in the Bullitt Center. And again, as I mentioned, they have been used in many Living Building Challenge projects right now. Again, they're very sophisticated. You can see on the left here, what the maintenance for these requirements just means that it needs to be churned every once in a while. There are times within this, and you take a wrench like this, you throw a handful of wood chips in there and you give it a turn and it just mixes it. But that's pretty much it. Surprisingly, the compost only has to be removed from the base about every year and a half. So this isn't something that's going to be very maintenance heavy. It does provide you with a link to the actual process. So that's the Phoenix Composting Toilet. Commercial lawnmowers are a significant source of pollution. In order to get that lawn to look great, the internal combustion engines that they use typically have no emissions controls on them. So the larger units are significant, again, significant sources of pollution, equivalent to, as you can see here, 141 cars per year to do landscaping. And I don't think that's reasonable. But there haven't been many alternatives, and the emissions that come out of these, because they're not regulated and there's no controls typically on them, include not only carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide, but VOCs, particulates, carcinogens, formaldehyde. There's they are significant sources of air quality problems in cities. Our top 10 product this year is the Mean Green Commercial Electric Lawnmower. Now these guys are making two different versions, a walk behind and a riding commercial mower. This is really the first commercially viable commercial version that we've seen out there. You've probably seen, anybody who lives in areas, we've seen electric hand push mowers for a while, but it hasn't found its way to the commercial use, and these guys have put one together. You can get them, depending on what you want to pay for batteries, for anywhere from 2 to 7 hours of operation. Recharge time is typical for these 9 to 12 hours, but you can get a fast charger option with them. And the battery lifetime is about 8,000 mowing hours. I think the company is saying that translates to about 10 years. And here's a picture of their walk behind model. Again, a couple of different, the 52 or 60 inch commercial riding or the 40 inch stand on. There, again, no emissions from these. They're quiet operation. You get the savings from not having to do the gas or the maintenance, and that actually is a pretty big savings. If you imagine, if you were a maintenance crew and you're out doing landscaping, imagine the fuel that you have to carry around with you, the repair on the units that you have to do. Most of that is taken care of with this system. They are a little bit pricey, but there are incentives, and over time the price actually evens out fairly well. So that's the Mean Green Commercial Electric Lawnmower. Our final business as usual is poor indoor air quality, and how you manage it is an enormous energy waste when you're using commercial HVAC. Now, the way people control indoor air quality is with HVAC systems is by replacing indoor air with outside air. What that means is you end up losing a lot of the conditioned air and then having to recondition it when it comes back in. The energy loss there and materials for filtration and other things is significant. There is, of course, energy capturing on some units, but the balance is, they're still extremely wasteful systems. And there's no guarantees. If you live in a polluted area, contaminants can still be brought in with the outdoor air. So our top 10 product comes from a new company called Envired, and they're making a product called the HLR. It stands for the HVAC Load Reduction Ventilation Unit. What this is, it's a modular unit that retrofits onto conventional HVAC systems, and it contains a proprietary sorbents that remove CO2, VOCs, formaldehyde, and other contaminants from indoor air. Now they do this instead of replacing the outdoor air that's coming in. The smart sensors control, monitor and control what comes in. There's another image of it here. The sorbent cartridge cleans itself automatically. It has a unit that heats it and expels the VOCs from it, and it needs to be replaced about once a year. But again, the smart controls and sensors in there provide real-time feedback, so the system automatically maximizes energy performance as well as indoor air quality. But it doesn't just run on its own all the time. If you have ideal conditions outside, say a cool evening, and it's clean, it can still run in economizer mode, and it will just draw outside air in those conditions. The sensors will note that and take that into account. This energy savings from using the Envired can be significant, estimated 20% energy savings directly, and potentially greater than 40% reduction in peak HVAC loads. Because of all that, you get a payback of 1 to 3 years according to the company. And that's in a retrofit application. But in new construction, you could potentially allow you to downsize the HVAC system and save costs across the board. That's, smaller ducts, smaller systems all around. So that is the Envired HLR load reduction ventilation system, and a new innovative product with all the talk about indoor air quality impacting people's performance and health. I think this is a product that we're going to see a lot of in the future. So that is our top 10 products for this year. And this is that comes from Building Green. A little bit about the company. We've been around since 1985. We are here in Brattleboro, Vermont. EBN, which many are Environmental Building News, that used to be called Building Green, was launched in 1992. We have 15 employees right now. We are, again, an independent company. And this is a view of that's a slate-clad Estey, Oregon facility, and that's our offices are on the top floor there. So thank you for joining me today, and look forward to more webinars, and I hope you enjoyed this year's Top 10 presentation. Thank you very much.